Hey, what's up, guys? Scott here. Doing this video on my phone because this is kind of a spur of the moment video, but I really wanted to make it because I haven't done a video in a while. But this is just kind of off the cuff one. But anyway, I realized recently that I have, and you can probably see from my posts and stuff, but very recently, I'd say within the past year or so, I have a renewed love for Star Wars. Now, as far as the movies go, Star Wars movies, I, of course, love the originals: New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, 4, 5, and 6. The original trilogy, love those. Those are amazing. And we obviously wouldn't have what we have today if those movies had not been successful way back in the 70s and 80s when they came out. Because, of course, I love those. And even though the prequel trilogy, 1, 2, and 3, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith, even though those movies definitely have issues, I still appreciate that George Lucas went back and made those to tell us the story of Anakin and how he became to being Vader. So, and the prequels had some really cool fights, right? You got the Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul with his double-bladed lightsaber, and some really cool space battles, and so the prequels had enjoyment in them. And of course, you can't forget the final fight on Mustafar in Episode 3 between Anakin and Obi-Wan. That was really awesome. So as far as even though the prequels have their issues, I still enjoyed them because they gave us some cool battles and stuff, and it showed the story of how Anakin became Vader, right? So 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6, that makes a perfect saga, right? A 6-part story, the Skywalker saga. I consider Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, the true ending of the Skywalker saga. Now, of course, recently, unfortunately, in the past 5 or so years, basically within the past decade, we had the sequel trilogy, right? 7, 8, 9, which were garbage. Now, I will say, when Force Awakens Episode 7, when Force Awakens first came out, I did kind of enjoy it because, it had some cool action sequences and stuff. The new characters were fairly okay. But it's one of those movies, especially when the other two movies came out, that trilogy just has not aged well in my head. And so, let's face it, those movies were trash. They totally disrespected the original trio, Han, Luke, and Leia, and we never even got to see a scene of the three of them together, which is unforgivable. They should have had that in the Episode 7. Now, I know Carrie Fisher passed away, which was no one's fault, but still, in Episode 7, they should have had all three of them there from the get-go. That was just bad writing and storytelling. Now, but the point is, the sequel trilogy just totally disrespected and slaughtered the original trio, right? Slaughtered their characters. So I do not consider the sequel trilogy canon at all, right? It's just trash, it's not... As a whole, that trilogy this should not exist. To me, it doesn't. I'm glad I watched them once, but being a huge Star Wars fan, because you got to check out, something, right? But I did not enjoy them. So the sequel trilogy is not canon to me. I consider Return of the Jedi the true ending to the Skywalker saga. So we have those 6 movies, right, which were really good. But recently, of course, on Disney Plus, within the past few years, we've had what we come to call the Mandoverse. The Mandoverse, which is a series of shows set 5 years after Return of the Jedi. And it started with The Mandalorian Season 1. We've had Mandalorian Seasons 1 and 2, and then The Book of Boba Fett, which is basically Mandalorian Season 2.5. And then upcoming in the spring, upcoming next year, we for sure have Mandalorian Season 3 and Ahsoka. So they've Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have created this series of shows that focus on this character Mando, Din Djarin, but the genius thing is that they bring in key characters from lore, from the movie lore or the Skywalker lore into the story in such a perfect way, and they are so well written. Especially starting in Mandalorian Season 2. Now, Season 1 was kind of standalone. In Season 2, they brought in Ahsoka Tano and Luke Skywalker in the best possible ways. They each appeared and I think Rosario Dawson is an amazing choice to play a live action Ahsoka. I love her as an actress anyway. So now she's playing one of my favorite Star Wars characters in live action. So that makes it even more exciting, right? And the way they brought in Luke in the season 2 finale, where he comes in, you see the X-wing, and he comes to those doors with his green lightsaber, and it starts killing all those dark troopers. Oh my god, that was so amazing. That one sequence, in like maybe let's say a 5-minute sequence, 10 at most, a 5 to 10 minute sequence, did Luke Skywalker better than the entire sequel trilogy, because that's what Luke is. He is going to protect the innocent, right? And him and Ahsoka are both kind, compassionate people, but they're also fierce warriors that will use lethal force if necessary to protect the innocent. And I love that. That's why they're my two favorite characters. They are the best parts of the Jedi Code, right? They both have seen the flaws in the Jedi Code, so they take the best parts, right, and leave out the worst, right? In fact, Ahsoka actually left the Jedi Order. I mean, she's still a good guy, but she does not identify as a Jedi, right? That's partially why her white lightsabers, right? She's what people would call a gray Jedi. Anyway, sorry, but I love the way that the Mandalorian brought in Luke and Ahsoka, and then in Book of Boba Fett, we got to see Luke and Ahsoka share a scene together, which was amazing, right? Because you had Anakin's old Padawan and then his son. By this time, of course, this is 5 years after Return of the Jedi, right? So he had been redeemed, right? And so you get to see Luke and Ahsoka share a scene, which is so amazing. Like, I mean, seriously, like as a fan, that moment meant so much to me. Someone that loves these two characters, and me and a lot of other fans wanted to see them meet, right? So Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are doing amazing with the Mandoverse, and I cannot wait to see what they're going to do with. Of course, I can't wait to see what they're going to do with Mandalorian season 3 and Ahsoka. And I like how they're keeping it vague. Now this is if they're keeping with the. Let me just say, okay, I like how they're keeping it vague whether this is going to be in canon with the sequel trilogy or not. Like, they're kind of either one of two things: either it's not, or they're just kind of either going to retcon its connection to the sequel trilogy, or they're just kind of doing their own thing and keeping it vague. Like, we're just going to do what we want with these characters and not worry about it, which is totally fine, right? Because the way they have done Luke and Ahsoka is spot on, the way they're supposed to be, and I love it. So anyway, the point, the Mandoverse has given me a renewed love for Star Wars, because Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni know what and they're both hardcore fans themselves, right? And Dave Filoni is the one behind the Clone Wars and a lot of the animated stuff, and he's the one that created the character Ahsoka Tano. So of course he knows what the fans want and how they want to see these characters portrayed. So they are writing these characters wonderfully. So I have a renewed love for Star Wars through the Mandoverse. I love the original trilogy. I like the prequels, and I love the Mandoverse. To me, the Mandoverse is the true continuation of Return of the Jedi. As the start of what I would call spin-off stories. They are kind of part of the Skywalker saga, because you're bringing in Luke and Ahsoka, characters that are obviously connected to the Skywalker story, but they're not stealing the spotlight from Mando, which is genius writing. They're bringing them in just the right capacity. Now, Ahsoka's getting her own show, so we'll see how that connects, but man, I just am so excited and happy to be a Star Wars fan again for this content. The Mandoverse has my attention. Like, to me, this is the true continuation of the Skywalker saga, and I cannot wait to see what's going to happen next. So, anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned for more content soon. Peace out.